Everybody, welcome to episode 174 of Fight Chat Friday. Today's episode is all about the punchers, but on the flip side of that, if you're a kicker, you need to know what they're looking out for as well. So we have a little bit of a visual here that we're going to show you guys that is going to give you some steps of what you ideally are going to be looking for if you are a puncher. So a couple of things, you got to have a lot of testing, which means in and out footwork. You can't just be static and you can't be just leaning on the back foot. You need to 3x the contact output, so you need to get the contact 3 times the amount of your opponent if you want to be successful, because there's more points available for kicks, of course. You need to also have a big kick up your sleeve. You can't only be a puncher, because if you have no kicks up your sleeve, you're only a one-trick pony, and you need to be able to pull these out of the bag from time to time to catch people by surprise. Of course, you need a good presence and not getting pushed around the ring. If you're backing up and always on the back foot, you're not going to be very successful as a puncher. Then, of course, you got to have very confident distance and timing in terms of your management of the distance. You got to know where you're safe, where you're not safe. You can just play on that edge, because you have to be that little bit closer, of course, if you're punching, and your timing has to be really good. And that goes into your last one. You have to be able to act on the first intention. If your opponent lifts their front foot off the floor, the minute that big toe lifts off the ground, your timing needs to be spot on to get in there and close down that distance as well. So these are some of the main key points you're going to be looking for as a puncher. And in today's video, Adrian, we're going to be looking at a fight from Team Sparring in the Worlds, where we have some guys here trying to show us some of these skills.
Yeah, we end up with a very interesting match here. Leard Xheladini from Ireland on the right, and Alex Hanson from Sweden in the red. And we have that typical kind of clash. One tall, leggy, rangy fighter, and one guy who is not going to win the match by trying to win the leg exchange, but who is very certainly looked to win the distance and tempo match, and to be able to put his hands into contact, just as we see here. So initially, those first couple of pointers that you made, Richie, that testing, that in and out, and that intention to get to set the pace of the match, really evident from the start from Leard.
Yeah, absolutely, because the distance is the important thing. Obviously, as the taller person, you want to be able to keep the distance a little bit further back. Now we see both guys are willing to get the hands as well, and both guys are able to punch really well. But of course, we see as well, one of the main factors that we have here is just from Leard. He's a shorter guy in this situation, so he's playing on the edge of the kick. But he's not staying there and he's not waiting. He's in and out, which gives his opponent different reads every time. And of course, he's also being able to get in there and have a bit of presence, and there's that big kick. So when they're thinking about the punches and the punches only, big kick comes out of it, and then there's a nice big score on it for you as well.
It's very, very hard to be one trick only. So if your opponent knows it's hands, it allows them to make some clear decisions. But if you have the kick as well, it's a big help. This was one of those things we were talking about in terms of acting the first intention. We see the intention to step in here, and Leard just hasn't changed his distance. The step in wasn't necessary. Alex didn't create the distance, or Leard didn't move back to the distance Alex hoped he would, and he's stepping through there. And we can see some examples of this later on as well. But that moment where, the foot is lifting, you're in the close distance, and you go through. Here again, we can see a little bit of an interesting one with Leard getting out of the corner. He's stayed close, acted on that first intention, and even though Alex is only kicking initially at just above his, or at his own hip height, Leard, being the shorter fighter, gives him a chance to slip out of that corner.
Yeah, and as well, the fact now that Leard has got that head kick earlier on, we said it's very important to have a kick in your back pocket. He has the luxury of not having to engage as often to match that 3x output, because he's actually got himself in that driving seat, where Alex now has to work a little bit harder to get the contact rate up to be able to find more shots, which allows Leard to be very effective on the counter side of being a puncher, where his distance and timing is really good, and he can just pick the right moment then to be able to come in and counter with front hand in a real effective way, like we see here.
The difference being, when you're leading on the scores as well, is that you can utilize that push-pull a bit more effectively. So he can pull backwards, and, it's been the flip side of it there. He stood in the toe and went forward, but he can pull backwards. And as Alex has to make that distance, he's going to have to really challenge his lift. So the ability to dynamically lift and shift and carry forwards without having a giveaway becomes harder, especially the later on you go into the round. And so stepping or a lazier front leg lift becomes more likely, and that gives Leard more opportunities to be able to trap the front foot and come into hands.
Yeah, really good as well. One small detail we didn't mention in the earlier list, but is very noteworthy, is the fact that Leard actually uses his front hand almost like a joust from medieval times. It's so extended that he gets there real early with that, and he takes the balance from people, which gains momentum for him. so he can drive people back and puts them on the back foot. And of course, if there's a bit of power on the end of that, then as a result as well, you're getting that full leverage of the extension of the arm, which means people feel it on the other side and they're not going to be too keen to be standing in front of your punches into the face.
But I think it's really important here, if we take this right back and we go back to the people who have the least experience in sparring or in training in Taekwondo who are watching this video, one of the things that we always warn people against as beginners is don't block. Blocking is a last resort item, and this is a very good illustration of why. So if Leard is blocking any of these kicks, he misses out on that opportunity to use his front hand. Like that joust, as Richie was saying, he can't step through the front foot. He's locking himself in place, letting Alex dictate the distance, and then Alex will be able to engage with hands first. Because Leard has bypassed the, you feel like you're protecting yourself when you block, but because he's bypassed that and he's used attack as the best form of defense, he's relied on his good appreciation of distance, the closing of that distance, and the angles that are created in order to get through. So a really good illustration, if you're just getting started in this sport, why we don't want to stand and block, and why working on blocking on the spot is not necessarily helpful to developing towards high level sparring.
Yeah, great point. So there you go, guys. Couple of interesting points and some things to look out for on both sides of the fence, whether you're a kicker or whether you're predominantly a puncher. These are both things for you to be aware of on either side of that. So there you go. Hopefully you can take some things away, and we will catch you in the next one.
Bye now.